Hello there, welcome to the booth here at Pro Tour Oath of the Gatewatch. That's Ian Duke, I'm Marshall Sutcliffe, and wow, this is just a super headliner match to kick off our drafts. We've got Luis Scott-Vargas versus Paul Cheon. Let's head down to the feature match area. Hello and welcome to coverage of Pro Tour Oath of the Gatewatch. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Ian Duke. And we're ready for round 9 action here. This is round 1 of our second booster draft, at least for each pod. Let's head down and see who we're going to watch. And I got to tell you, this is a blockbuster matchup. We've got Paul Cheon from Team Channel Fireball jabbering away with somebody. Who is it? Well, of course, it's Luis Scott-Vargas, also of Team Channel Fireball. And, you know, for those of you that don't know, these guys are very close friends. They came up together through Magic. They lived together for a while in college, and they have stayed close friends that whole time. And we are underway here. Now, I've got a chance to look at both of these deck lists here, Ian, and I got to say, both of these guys brought out the big guns. And, of course, Luis has to just put the creature below the line.
No, I prefer playing that's my normal play.
Zada's Commando and a Stonehaven Medic here start things off. So Luis is on black-white allies, you know, kind of a cohort-style deck. And Paul Cheon is on a blue-red. It's more of a tempo deck that's looking to get in for damage. Nobody's doing anything except for gaining some life.
I feel like I unmulliganed because I gained a life. Okay. I'll let you start at 25 and mulligan 1 or 2.
I think we're going to have an easy job this round, it looks like, Ian. They're going to take some of the commentary load.
Yeah, we can just be quiet, Marshall.
We'll get out of their way when they
narrate
want
the
to
match
chat.
to you guys.
You know, it is funny. I was saying it before. You know, both of these players are generally actually quite quiet when they play and quite the opposite when they're not. But looks like maybe they're going to chatter it up for us. All right, so Zulaport Chain Mage here for Scott-Vargas is going to clear the way for that Commando.
Luis offering up the block. Not really. Zada's Commando has first strike.
Yeah, and Paul decided not to attack as he wants to leave his Commando back to block the Chain Mage itself.
And this is the beginning of that black-white deck's kind of stranglehold here, right? Like
Totally.
the Stonehaven Medic, blocking well, Zulaport Cutthroat, threatening to drain some life.
And here's a nice one for Luis as well. He's got a Captain's Clause that he's going to equip up, which is going to get him in for an extra point of damage here. Unfortunately for Luis, the rather zealous ally that's created is just going to get gobbled up by the Commando. But Paul's going to have to find something here. He's done nothing but a 2-drop this game.
Yeah, whenever you're up against this black-white deck, sort of the onus is on you to make something happen and try to end the game quickly. There's just so much life gain, and the cohort ability does so well in a long game that, you know, the black-white deck is happy to just kind of sit back and let the game drag on.
Geez, still nothing for Chian here. Now, you know what he has, and this is what Luis is going to have to think about here, is turn against.
Oh, yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
And he does have turn against. He's going to fire it off on the Chain Mage here and try to generate a nice little scenario where he gets to block with it. And he does just that. Now, the question is, does Luis have Unnatural Endurance in hand? I know he's got 2 in his list, and he could save a creature here if he wants. Otherwise, he's losing both, like he's losing his board here. And he does. So he decides to save his Zulaport Chain Mage, and very nice from Chian there. He remembers to use his cohort ability there. And, you know, that didn't end up being a super blowout for Scott-Vargas. It was a 2-for-1, but it wasn't the worst case. He could have no board state here, and at least he's left himself with the chain mage.
Yeah, it looks like both players with little bit of a flood issue going on here. Luis with no follow-up besides re-equipping the chain mage. And as we've seen, Paul has had a pretty slow start up this game.
Oh, how about a quick finish here?
Yeah, that's really nice. So that's a Storm Chaser Mage into a Surged Boulder Salvo, taking out the Zilport Cutthroat, getting in for 4 damage.
Luis down to 15 now and looking for some action. And he's found some. He's got an isolation zone. He's going to use that on the pesky Storm Chaser Mage that's going to keep hitting him in the air over and over. But he doesn't have a blocker down for the Zada's Commando, so that we could see Paul Cheon turn the corner here, although as we take a quick glance at Cheon's cards in hand, it doesn't look great. And same thing for Luis. So it looks like we may have hit a bit of a stall here, as just the Commando getting in for 2 a turn isn't going to be quite enough to get the job done in a timely manner here. But hey, Paul, take it. He's ahead. We'll also note a Blighted Cataract on the battlefield. It looks like Paul did draw a spell this turn, though. Interesting, he played his land this turn even though he's flooded out. I guess he figures he's going to hit lands for the rest of the game, because that Valakut Predator that he just played wants to see as many land drops as possible.
Yeah, I imagine he's planning to activate the Blighted Cataract soon and knows he'll draw into more lands. So
there you go. Makes good sense. Also, he's going to plan on activating this Fumarole, and this is a huge attack. Is this 10 damage?
Yeah, it sure is.
And Luis looks like he's just flooded out here, staring at just an equipment on the battlefield and not much else.
Oh, that's a nice one,
but
though.
He drew a Felidar Sovereign. Is that enough? Let's see. If Paul attacks with everything, he can block, gain 4, go to 7. And yes, he is still alive in that scenario by the narrowest of margins. Chian just needs to find some way to get that thing out of the way. Wow, what a great draw for Luis. Yeah, Chian. I think he thought, okay, this one's in the books.
Mm-hmm.
There are very few single card answers to this scenario. And Luis Scott-Vargas has found one. And Paul has to pass the turn back. Oh, man.
This looks like anyone's game at this point.
I thought it was over.
Yeah.
Now, Luis can attack here if he wants, but he would ultimately lose his Felidar Sovereign in that exchange, but it would come at a great cost to Chian, as he'd have to give up a couple of creatures. Okay, it's Vampire Envoy that Scott-Vargas has found. He's still deciding if he wants to do anything else. I think he considered equipping the Captain's Clause, but he's decided not to. And we're going to see that Blighted Cataract on end step here for Chian, which is going to draw him 2 cards. And he just wants to find some way to get a creature out of the way, namely the Felidar Sovereign, even just for a turn.
Yeah, something like a Slip Through Space could be great here, too.
Yeah. A Sweep Away would do it. There's so many cards. Clutch of Currents. Take a look at his list here and see what he's got available in a moment. But these are the cards that he's going to be thinking about as he goes through. He's got an Exert Influence in his deck, which wouldn't quite get the job done here. He does have a Coral Helm Guide in his list in the main deck, so that would also do it. He's got plenty of mana to play and activate it. And it is Exert Influence here. He's going to take the Vampire Envoy. That still doesn't get the job done this turn, though. Oh, Fire Mantle Mage. Let's see. Does that get it done?
Yep.
Yes, he cannot block, and that's going to do it. So a nice sequence there for Paul off of that Cataract, and he does, in fact, get the job done here. That's going to do it for Game 1. We'll be back right after these messages.
Take the oath. Retake the world. Oath of the Gatewatch is now available on Magic Online. Explore the new set by signing up for Magic Online at mtgo.com. Standard is the name of the game at Oath of the Gatewatch Game Day. Join the action on February 13th and 14th at your local game store. Visit magic.wizards.com/game day for more information.
right, so that's game one in the books from our main table. Let's jump back to our back table here, which features William Huey Jensen versus Martin Mueller from Denmark. Both players at 7-1 at that main pod that we featured early this morning. A lot of you will have seen Martin Mueller draft this deck, and will have an idea of what he's got going on. Hilariously, William Huey Jensen sitting right next to our other feature drafter, Paulo Vitor Rosa, who's also down in the feature match area, by the way. We'll be checking in on him, time permitting. And he's in the same colors as Paulo, and he was sitting close to him at the table, too. But
yeah,
the deck looks a little different.
Yeah, from what we understand, Huey opened that Jory N that he had there, which put him in the same colors as Paulo, who ended up getting past a Jory N, also in pack 1.
But William decided instead to go for a more Surge-centric build rather than the kind of blue colorless-centric build that Paulo went for. And so it actually worked out. I think both of their decks are pretty decent. And it looks like we have a game ended there. I'm assuming that there was a Nissa involved in all this counters being put on things.
Yeah, Nissa just came down,
Yeah.
put counters on the team, and that was lethal.
So that was going to do it right there. So Martin Mueller takes game one from William Huey Jensen. Martin first picked that Nissa. All right, so let's jump over and take a look at what is game two here between Jason Chung and JC Tao. Now, I will tell you that both of these players undefeated at the Pro Tour currently. They had the best sleep of anybody. They got to go to bed knowing that they put in a good day's work, and both were 8-0 coming in overnight. But Chung won game one very quickly. We were still in the developing stages of our main feature match when I heard in my ear that Jason Chung had taken game one. So something may have gone wrong for JC in that first game, but looks like this one's a little more competitive as we see shoulder to shoulder from Jason Chung from New Zealand.
Combat?
Yep. Go to 7.
Okay, it looks like we're going to jump back to our main table because I see that they're just underway in the early stages of Paul Cheon versus Luis Scott-Vargas, and I know that you and home want to see how this match ends. We had a nice little close game to start things off, ultimately with Chian finding the victory, and now we're going to get to see how game two goes. Now, this is a pretty ideal turn 3 play here for Scott-Vargas. He's not going to be able to tussle with that Zada's Commando right away, but he kind of doesn't need to, thanks to the Drana's Emissary and what it does. And I'll tell you what, Ian, he's got 2 of those. They both came late in the third pack.
Wow.
Yeah, he said his deck really came together. He picked them up like 6th and 7th or something like that.
I'm going to go into combat. I'm going to attack, but before you declare blockers, I'm going to try and light everything.
You got it.
It looks like he has the other copy in his hand here as well.
Yeah.
And there it is.
Shaking your head.
I do that on this
Yeah,
video.
okay.
It was a
I
good
got
play.
it. I got it.
It felt good.
Can tell you also the table that we just left from, Jason Chung versus JC Tao. Jason Chung wins 2-0, so he finished off that game there. In the meantime, Scott-Vargas, even though he's not able to enter combat effectively with Cheon's creatures, he is just draining them out here. And isolation zone to get the flyer out of the way. Gravity Negator gets put in the zone, and crunching in is Luis Scott-Vargas. It makes it so hard to fight.
Have to mulligan game 3?
Yeah, if you've ever tried to race a Drana's Emissary, you know it's not an easy task. And 2,
Yeah, well, how about 1? And 1 on your side. That changed things significantly here for Chian. He just fired off Exert Influence and stole one of them. This is going to be a Pilgrim's Eye. And let's see if Luis has a 3-drop to follow it up. We know that he has an Essence Depleter in this deck and quite a few sources of colorless mana to activate it. He's also got a McKindy Aeronaut in hand that I did see.
yeah, there's also the Shambling Vent on the table, which Paul will have to think about as he's planning out a race situation here.
Great point. Yeah, that can completely skew things.
It's actually pretty cool. Both players have their corresponding creature land
In their deck, yeah.
in their
that's
deck,
nice.
not currently. Yeah,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
saw
The
Wandering Fumarole from
yeah.
Paul last game, yeah.
All right, so it is just going to be the Aeronaut, though, for Scott-Vargas, which is nice. That really does blank a lot of what Paul Cheon's trying to do here. It basically means that in conjunction with the Pilgrim's Eye that Paul just can't attack unless he has something here. See what Chian comes up with for the turn here. 4 mana. These players have played against each other thousands of times in playtesting and even in tournaments occasionally as well. It looks like it's going to be a gravity negator here.
Yeah,
for
second
Chian.
gravity negator. That's a big deal. That holds off the Drana's Emissary very well.
Yeah, the clock has been mitigated here. We can. Oh, that's good. Core Sky Climber there for Scott-Vargas. And he's just going to play his land and pass the turn here. Chian's going to activate his Zada's Commando on end step to drop Scott-Vargas down to 12.
Yeah, so as things stand, Paul Cheon a little bit ahead in the race here, doing 2 damage each turn.
Uh-oh. I think Chian may have just drawn an Eldrazi Obligator.
You just have all lands, but then also not activate your abilities that require lots of lands. Just all Uno cards in your hand.
Reasonable request from Luis there. Yeah, Chian does have an Eldrazi Obligator in his list, so that must be what I saw there. He's going to set up for next turn, though, it looks like, as he's just going to dump his hand here. End step, Luis is going to activate Shambling Vent just to show off that he could do it. This is not looking good for Scott-Vargas, though. Sitting at 7-1, and he needs to win back-to-back games against Paul Cheon if he's going to keep that X-1 record, as we say out here on the Pro Tour. And I think Cheon's going to be able to set up a big turn next turn. Let's see what Luis found, though. All right, he's going to give his core Skywalker flying and then go ahead and attack with it. I think he says, look, I'm happy to trade off for your Drana's Emissary that you stole or the Gravity Negator. Paul Cheon's got 6 mana, so he's still a little ways off from getting that Valakut Invoker online. And Cheon's just going to protect his life total here and trade off with the Negator.
Yeah, I think Chian, knowing that he has the Eldrazi Obligator, he's going to be able to set up a lethal attack, if not yet, then very soon. So he just wants to make sure he doesn't lose to something like the Sky Climber getting pumped with Unnatural Endurance or something like that.
Right now, from Paul's perspective, he has to look over at the board state. He knows the creatures, but there's also a couple of wrinkles here. One of them is that Luis has a card in his hand. Could be anything. And also that there's a Shambling Vent on the battlefield that can get activated too. So Paul has to kind of work his way through what are the possibilities that Luis can have and how much damage can Paul get in this turn if he fires off that Obligator.
Yeah, it's also interesting because Paul has the Valakut Invoker. So in some sense, he can kind of just sit back and wait to get that active.
Yes.
Is a more conservative line of play.
Yeah, he did not play a land last turn, and I don't think he's going to play one this turn either. He's got an Akum Stonewaker there, which he has not, again, he hasn't activated the landfall ability since he hasn't played a land here. Yeah, Paul's going to stay patient here.
Yeah, I mean, right now as it stands, the Drana's Emissaries are breaking even with one another. Paul's got the bigger board. He's got the surprise trick in terms of the Eldrazi Obligator, and he has Inevitability on board with the Valakut Invoker. So things are kind of on Luis to stitch something together here.
Yeah, also Paul is slightly ahead thanks to the Zada's Commando.
Oh, yeah, great point, Marshall.
You know, just chipping away with that. And it does represent some level of risk to go for the Obligator plan, even though Luis has just played another swamp out of his hand here. So there's still the same scenario as last time, one unknown card, but now he's added yet another creature to his battlefield here. All right, so what he did is he actually just activated his Stonewaker off of the top deck land. And it looks like he's going to start chipping away for damage here with this. Let's see, the elemental off the Stonewaker, a Flame Seeker,
And the Valakut Invoker?
and
Oh,
I
sorry,
think it's
not
the
the
Predator.
Valakut Predator,
Yeah.
sorry.
Luis is going to activate his Shambling Vent and start lining up blocks here. Looks like he's lined up a double block and a chump. And that was Unnatural Endurance, was that last card in hand for Luis. He's going to use it on his Shambling Vent here.
Oh, that's actually a big deal here.
Yeah. And that's going to get him a nice little cushion. But still, Luis has problems here, right? He is still behind on board a little bit. And Chian still has 2 great things going for him here. Actually, I should say 3, honestly. So
Yeah.
he has, if he wants, he has the Blighted Cataract to draw him cards. He also has the Eldrazi Obligator that he can use to just steal this game if the shields are down far enough for Scott-Vargas. And he's 1 step away from the Invoker just tearing up the board.
Yep, and as you pointed out, Marshall, even in the meantime, he's still getting ahead 1 damage each turn with the Zada's Commando.
Tough spot here for Luis. And
That
Luis
said-
draws his card and passes.
Then another one. So
That said, Luis is not out of this just yet. If Paul gives him a little bit more time, you know, we saw the Felidar Sovereign last game.
Yeah.
There are things that he could draw into.
I'm sure that Chian's thinking about that when he keeps looking at that Obligator in his hand as well.
Yeah.
He just has not had the window to shut the door fully on this game yet. I think the Shambling Vent is really kind of the MVP here. Uh-oh, there's land number 8 for Chian.
Right. And I think Chian's thinking here because I believe on board the Obligator could set up a win pretty quickly here.
Yeah.
But he may just take the more conservative
Do
path.
you see this? Ian? Luis is trying to encourage Paul to use his Stonewaker, when in reality, Paul's incentive is to use the Invoker.
Yep. That's Luis uses Ally Encampment to bring back Trana's Emissary.
Nice. Luis is fighting the good fight here.
Yeah, it's looking grim, though.
It is looking very grim here
there
for
are some times where
Scott-Vargas.
the wording like that would-
Yeah, well, he did find a Claustria Nightwatch here, so a nice pickup there for Scott-Vargas. Again, though, the incremental advantage is really starting to pile up, and he doesn't have a lot of options here.
Yeah, I think with Luis tapped out,
Can he just kill him?
let's see, there's Obligator steals the Night Watch, everything attacks. 2 blocks. Yeah, I think it's lethal on board here.
Because
with
the Obligator, remember, is 3 damage of haste that comes out of nowhere as well. He's going to do it. And Luis says, well, I think I might have been dead already. But Paul Cheon wins this match 2-0. So he improves to 8-1. I know I talked to him this morning. We'll have a chance to watch that interview a little bit later. And he feels a little bummed that he didn't pick up the Modern deck that the rest of his team did, which I thought he was on when I talked to him. He's actually
yeah, I
kind
didn't
of
know that
fitting.
either.
All right, back table here. That's William Huey Jensen on the left-hand side of the table. And on the other side is Martin Mueller from Denmark. Looks like Martin just cracked a Blighted Woodland. Yeah.
Okay.
Probably just thinning out the deck here. Both of their decks look good, though, Chian and Luis.
Mm-hmm.
They both had good decks, so wouldn't be surprised to see them move forward.
So Martin looking like he's under a ton of pressure here from Huey's Flyers. And between the Storm Chaser Mage and the Dwar Isle Avenger. And is that a Cloud Manta as well? Yeah, it looks like Huey is representing lethal on board here on the following turn. This is Martin's turn here.
Martin's at 4. Yeah, that's pretty tough.
That looks like a Lumbering Falls with 4 +1/+1 counters on it, which normally would be pretty cool, but not really giving Martin any help in this board state.
It's still kind of cool.
Yeah, achievement unlocked.
Yeah.
I do see a copy of Sweep Away, I believe, in Martin's hand, so he could take care of one of those flyers. Unfortunately, any 2 of the 3 unblocked is lethal in the air. So this may be Martin's final stand here.
So Lumbering Falls is going to get in, but Huey's going to protect his life total by just chump blocking with an Incubator Drone. And like you said, this could be it. Now, I will tell you, Mueller's up a game here. So that would force a game 3 if Huey is able to finish this off. And he is. So yay for us. This is the last match going in our feature match area, but this round is not over yet. We get to see a game 3. Now, I can tell you also that William Huey Jensen is on blue-red, which surprised us since he was sitting near Paulo Vitor Damarosa, who's also on blue-red, but his deck's a little different.
Yeah, he's got, as you said earlier, Marshall, like very much the Surge style blue-red deck. So it'll be cool to see that in contrast with what Paulo drafted.
Let our players take a quick sideboard here and maybe get you a little different view of our venue. We've got some kind of sweet new stuff set up for this PT. See if we can get that for you. But yeah, this deck is significantly different than Paulo's. How many of these slip-through spaces did he end up running?
He's actually running 6 copies of Slip Through Space, which is pretty wild.
You're kidding, right?
No, I'm serious.
He has 6 slip-through space?
6 copies of Slip Through Space, yeah.
Wow. All right. And take a look there. That's what it looks like outside of the feature match area on the other side. These are our day 2 competitors here in Atlanta. And you can see there's a few spectators and judges and stuff roaming around there as well.
Yeah, this is an awesome venue here in Atlanta. I've been having a great time.
And that's everybody else kind of finishing up their round. I got to say, it's pretty cool, too, when everybody comes in the morning to do their draft. It's a lot of packs being cracked at once.
Yep. That sort of hushed silence and the flicking of cards. So one other really notable cool card in Huey Jensen's deck is Pyromancer's Assault. This is the enchantment where if you cast 2 spells in the same turn, you get to deal 2 damage to something.
Love that card.
Yeah.
I do have an update, by the way, from the Paulo Vitor Damarosa versus Frank Lepore match. Frank Lepore wins 2-0.
Okay.
So he defeats the Hall of Famer and improves to 8-1.
He must have a really solid deck because as we watched Paulo draft, his deck turned out very well.
This is Frank's first Pro Tour.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I hadn't realized that.
Yeah, he qualified for this by top 8ing GP Orlando. And he kind of carried over the invite until now because that was a while ago, a year and a half ago or something. And here he is, 8-1.
Good for him.
Yeah, so a great run for Frank here in his first try on the Pro Tour. And I got to say, he's beat some big names, too.
Yeah.
I mean, Paulo, like, there's few names bigger than that. But, yeah, he's had to – it hasn't been easy for him.
So we have both players taking a look at their opening hands here.
Let's get some keeps here, gentlemen. All right, and we're off to the races here. Bailoff Pup there is the first order of business, but a nice follow-up here. Kind of exactly what you want against the Bailoff Pup with a Kozlek Sentinel. And yeah, the Sentinel's going to hold down the fort really well here as the Core Sky Climber would actually have to get activated to get through.
Yeah, Kozilek Sentinel, one of the commons that was instrumental in staving off aggressive decks in triple battle for Zendikar. Only 1 pack worth now, but that doesn't change the fact that Huey headed on turn 2.
All right, so there's one of the 6 slip through space in the deck for Huey Jensen. He went all in for Surge here. A little awkward for him there that he has to play that after, but you know he could have been digging for a land drop, finding a third land
I think
there.
he was looking for his his third land.
So the Storm Chaser Mage is going to come down with no prowess, but it is going to get in for 1 right away since it has haste. Ooh, Sea Guardian. Well, that's going to put a stop to that fun for Huey
Speaking
Jensen.
of staving off aggression.
No kidding. This actually gets really interesting since neither of these decks is, you know, particularly geared towards a stall out. Though I will say that I feel like it probably favors Martin since he's the one that has a lot of support in his deck and Anissa. And, you know, he can go wide and then build up his board just a lot bigger than Huey.
Yeah, that's probably fair. That said, with, as we mentioned, 6 copies of Slip Through Space, you know, Huey's deck is capable of still just chipping through for damage over time. So Martin's going to want to preserve a high life total and generally be pretty conservative in the early stages of this game.
Right as we say that, he activates his core Sky Climber and bashes for 3.
Yeah,
So
well, Seed Guardian's great at holding down the fort.
that is true. He also had a really nice little turn there. He wanted to play 2, you know, use up all of his mana for the turn. So he's going to play a Stalking Drone after combat and then pass the turn back.
Do you know the playtest name for Stalking Drone, Marshall?
What was it?
It was Koala, after Kozilek's Rootwalla. Koala with a K.
Wow, you guys went deep.
Yeah, we go deep sometimes.
I like that. Kozilek's Rootwalla. So Incubator Drone was the play there for Jensen. He doesn't attack. He just passes the turn back. And Martin's going to play, well, the green Incubator Drone. An Eyeless Watcher. And now he is also going to pass the turn back with no attack. So we have entered a little bit of a stall-out phase here. But Cinder Hellion's a nice addition to the board for Jensen, and he's going to knock Martin down to 17 with the additional 2 damage. Neither player really able to get anything moving as far as damage goes in combat, but they're both building out their board state quite efficiently here. I mean, look at this board. It is exploded. Spawnbinder Mage for Martin, and again, just passing the turn, neither player able to get in. Ooh, Ondu Rising in hand from Mueller. That could be a big one.
Yeah.
All right, so start things off by slip through spacing the Cinder Hellion.
Yeah, and this is pretty awesome. I mean, cantrip, deal 4, draw a card for 1 mana.
Yeah, it does look good there, doesn't it? And I think there's going to be a follow-up Jwar Isle Avenger here as well.
Very nice. So this makes it super dangerous for Martin Mueller if the Seed Guardian ever leaves the battlefield somehow.
Yeah.
And speaking of leaving the battlefield, I do see a copy of Roiling Waters in
Correct.
Huey's hand. So
It's
if
his
he can
last
get up
card,
to
in
7
fact.
mana,
That's next turn if he hits the
if he
land.
hits his land drop, yeah, and that's going to be a huge game.
He's also got a Scion on the battlefield.
Oh, great point,
if
Marshall.
he wants to sacrifice it, he could fire it off next turn. So, you know, you were saying if the Seed Guardian were to leave play, well, how about back to hand for a turn? Huey setting up this next turn beautifully, trying to take down the match. He found himself down a game, one last game, and Martin's passed the turn back to Huey.
Yeah, and I think I count 8 damage in the air here,
He
just
also
with what he has on board
drew a
alone.
land. Here we go, Roiling Waters. I love this card. Bounce Guardian and bounce Spawnbiter Mage, and I'm going to draw 2 cards. Remember, you do have to target with that.
And here's the tricky thing. If the Spawnbiter Mage wants to tap something down, it also has to tap another ally, which then reduces Martin to just 2 blockers.
Right, and now all of a sudden, Cinder Hellion, you know, these creatures on the ground look like they can get in too. What a beating. And remember, Huey's not. He gets to draw 2 cards here
That's
too
right,
to keep
yeah.
the card draw flowing. So this is really tough spot now for young Martin Mueller. Currently ranked 7th in the world. And it resolves with no other action. Martin's left up all of his blockers. 2 cards go to hand for Huey, and now he's going to line up attacks here. He's at 17. He is unlikely to die on a crackback, but he does not know about Ondu Rising, and that can change the math dramatically here. All right, here comes combat. Bang. 4 creatures are hitting the red zone here. Flying is going to be acquired here by the core Sky Climber, and it looks like it's going to jump in front of the Dwar Isle Avenger, and Martin's also lined up a double block on the Cinder Hellion.
Okay, so you take 5.
He also sacrifices Scion to pump the stalking drone. So a lot of trades happen and some damage in the air, and the board looks a lot more cleared up in general, but specifically on Martin's side, who now is in an awkward position of needing to reload, but also not die next turn.
Yeah, and the trouble is, even if Martin can stabilize a little bit here, you know, Huey has those slip through spaces that he can draw into.
Yeah, he's already played 2 of them, and he still has 4 left in his library. So it's just going to be Seed Guardian. Let's see what Huey finds.
Looks like another Dwar Isle Avenger he drew last turn off of the...
Team!
Oh, wow.
Big attack here from Huey.
I like this attack
This
here,
is
Marshall.
great. Yeah, this is awesome.
Huey basically saying, yeah, you can eat one of my creatures with your Seed Guardian, but the rest of your blocks have to be pretty bad for you.
Yeah, either trades, bounces, or damage. Martin's going to protect his life total to the best of his ability here. First strike damage is going to take down the Scion. No effects, just going to pass the turn. Huey's just fine with the results of this transaction. And he knows that he can reload the board with 2 more threats for next turn before he passes, with Martin at 6 life.
Yeah, I like that attack a lot there from Huey. I think, factoring in there, I think because Huey saw Nissa in an earlier game, he just wants to keep trading off, keep the board clear, make sure that Martin isn't able to stabilize with a bunch of creatures in play, and then start putting +1/+1 counters on them.
You know, that's a great point. It so incentivizes him to do that. And this is crazy. The Ondu Rising that he's had in his hand the whole time, like, he doesn't have enough mana now to even get in with an Awakened Land.
Yeah, that's true. And it's also possible Huey saw that card in an earlier game, too. We don't know whether he did or not, but that may be yet another reason to just be kind of cleaning up the board.
Martin just has to pass the turn back here without putting anything down, and really put a little fear into Huey about what kind of cards he could have and whether he thinks he have them. No. Sorry, he has not passed the turn back. He's going to play the Spawnbiter Mage and just leave up 1 green mana, perhaps representing Vines of the Recluse, which he actually has.
Oh, wow.
He's got it in his hand. Okay, well, this does make Huey's decision a lot easier, because he knows now that he can narrow down the combat tricks that are relevant here down to just the Vines, and then he can approach from there. Now, he does have a lot of creatures, and he has to make sure that there's nothing that he's missing and run through the iterations, and that's what you see him doing, is you see him kind of talking to himself there. But this is a puzzle that he can solve on his own quite easily. And he's even found a Tightening Coils to reduce that Seed Guardian to just a blocker here that doesn't eat up or trade anything. And again, Huey Jensen sends everything into the red zone. This has been an exciting game.
Yeah, and importantly, that Tightening Coils also triggers Prowess on the Storm Chaser Mage.
And the Umara Tangler.
Entangler, yeah.
Yeah, great point. So that's an extra 2 damage that he's getting there. So Martin has to line up blocks to make sure that he can survive this turn at all.
Yeah, it looks like Martin's best blocks...
He can.
Yeah, he can survive this turn. He can block, say, the Umara Entangler and the Dwar Isle Avenger, and that lets 5 damage come through.
putting him down to 1. It's so tough when your best blocks leave you at 1 life. This is not over yet, though. Remember, the Vines of the Recluse is still a thing, and if he hits a land, he can play Ondu Rising and potentially gain some of this life back. I don't know if it's enough, though. Okay, blocks have all happened. Passes a turn back. What does he find? A Jotty offshoot? Oh, that's terrible for Mueller. Still no land. He's also got multiple blue spells in his hand that he just can't cast, and a retreat to Emeria, which does stone nothing here.
Yeah, this game definitely looks like Martin's mana having caught up with him.
Yeah, it does. I mean, he's got 5 lands. Like, that should make him fully operational, but no blue mana. Down to 1 life. It doesn't look good for him. It looks like Huey's going to be able to close this one out. Martin's running the numbers here and just trying to find if there's any way he can survive for another turn. He's doing his due diligence to just try to find out, but I don't think he has a way out here. Looks like he's going to play Ondu Rising here. No Awaken. He can combine this with Vines of the Recluse to gain 3 and untap his creature. But he's not going to. He's just going to take the 2 and jump up to 3 and leave Vines up. Play a Jotty offshoot as a blocker. He actually does have 3 blockers here and at 3 life, so Martin Mueller just hanging on. Is this a slip through space from Huey? And it is, and that's going to do it. Martin Mueller extends the hand, and William Huey Jensen improves to 8 and 1. A little look at the camera there. You hear what he said?
What did he say?
I have 6 of them. Because Mueller's like, geez, the 3rd one, huh? And he's like, yeah, well, that was half of them. So still a great start for Mueller. And, you know, I mean, I'm just used to seeing Martin have a great record at the PT now. The kid just comes out and puts up numbers every single time. He's remarkably consistent.
Yeah, he's been very, very impressive in the last year or two.
And he's a young man. I mean, he's like 19, something like that. Like he, you know, Huey's been playing the game almost that long. Yep. Right? Like this is, you know, the 20th year for the Pro Tour. And, you know, that's about how old Martin Mueller is, too. All right, let's head over to the news desk and Rich Hagan.
Bless you for that, and thanks to Ian Jig as well with round 1 of draft here on day 2. Now, if you're at 7-2 after the first round of day, you're well on track because you can have 3 losses for sure, and the 4th loss, well, that starts to get problematic. So 7-2, you're in decent shape. That means Shuhei Nakamura, Yuya Watanabe, Owen Turtenweld. Here's one to be very afraid of if you're still in the field. Patrick Dickman is up to 7-2, one of the great modern players. Now, traditionally playing with Twin, but here, can't play that this weekend, but he aced Modern. He worked his way through, he's up to 7-2. Michael Majors has an amazing constructed record at Pro Tours, not so hot at Limited, so the fact he's 7-2 now, if he can get to 8-3, you'd have to think he was in with a chance of the top 8. And Andrea Mengucci is also up to 7-2. Well, there are so many players jockeying for pole position here at Pro Tour Oath of the Gatewatch. Somewhere out in the sea of players still standing is Brian David Marshall. At BDM, you've got someone who's got their eye on the top 8. Who's with you?
I'm here with Bart Lewandowski. Bart, tell me about your Pro Tour experience coming this year. You're 8-1. We don't know very much about you. What's your Pro Tour experience like before this event?
This is my third Pro Tour. The first one was in Vancouver last year. I made top 16 there. Second one, maybe let's skip it because this wasn't a pleasant experience. And this is my third one, and so far I'm really happy.
So top 16 in your first Pro Tour is an amazing accomplishment. What did you play in that event?
I played mono red because it was it was well positioned in metagame. I was very hesitant to pick that deck because I don't like such strategies, but if it's well positioned, then why not?
So it's funny that you played mono red in your first Pro Tour because we watched you absolutely punish a mono red deck or a nearly mono red deck this weekend by casting Collected Company into double Kitchen Finks. You're playing Abzan Company this weekend?
Yes, I'm playing Abzan Company. I always loved playing Birthing Pod, but once they banned it, I wasn't happy with that, but luckily I got Collected Company and I can roll again.
Tell me about how your draft went. You're at the featured draft table. You just played Scott Lipp this round. Tell me about your draft and how your first round went.
The first one went quite okay. Scott had a good deck, black-red devoid, but I think that the red-green devoid combination is slightly better. I'm basically playing the same deck I played yesterday, so I'm quite okay.
Okay, well, for Bart Lewandowski trying to one-up his top 16 finish in Vancouver, this is Brian David Marshall letting you know what's going on here on the floor.